Good afternoon. I know this is really, really fun to be here, so I hate to quiet everybody down. So I promise we're going to talk for an hour and then you can go back to having fun, because I know there's so many people in this room that haven't seen each other in a long time. And maybe you're making new friends and new colleagues today. So we're going to chat for about an hour and then welcome everybody to visit again. My name is Nicole Small. I'm the CEO of Light Hill Philanthropies, and we are absolutely thrilled to have you all here today to celebrate the launch of ARPA-H's Customer Experience Hub here in Texas. Can we just say that one more time? It's been a really fun 2 years, and there's so many people who've been in this room who've joined us on this journey. I wanted to thank everybody today for being here and making this happen. Of course, our ARPA-H director, Renee, and her team, the Advanced Technology International team, our partners in Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and everybody else from across the state, as well as the hundreds of spokes nationwide that have engaged in the ARPA-H Net Health Network. So a big round of applause to everyone in the room. ARPA-H is all about high risk, high reward opportunities. And we know that with the assets we have here, not only in Texas, but across our spoke network, that we can reduce the risk and increase the reward to patients everywhere. I literally just sat in an incredible session where I heard Andrea say to the group, ARPA-H truly wants your biggest, boldest ideas. They mean it. And the change that already has begun to happen here on campus today, we have no idea how far reaching it's going to be. And just to remind us all, we've been talking about process and locations and offices and meetings and those things, but I wear pink today to honor Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And that, at the end of the day, is why we're here. We're here because we at Light Hill Philanthropies and everybody else in this room believe that patients should come first. We believe that we want to change the patient journey. We want to make life better for patients. If we don't have our health, we basically have nothing. And that is why we are all here today. So we can talk about process and all those fun things, but we're here because we don't want to have any more disease awareness months. We want to cure those diseases. And so that's why we're all here today. So speaking of being here today, we have representatives here from leading health institutions, from nonprofits, community organizations, higher ed institutions, the public sector, the corporate sector, and more. We would like to acknowledge our public sector, our HHS Regional Director, Julia Lothrop, who's here, I believe, somewhere. Hello. Dallas City Manager, TC Broadnax, who I just saw walk in. Our very own Councilman Omar Narvaez. Councilwoman Gay Danelle Willis. I think I saw come in. We would also like to acknowledge the representatives in attendance from the offices of Senator John Cornyn, Governor Greg Abbott, Congressman Colin Allred, Congressman Michael Burgess, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and Congressman Mark Vesey. Thank you all for being here today. And as many of you who've been following this process know, that there were 2 hubs selected to work with the DC area. And so we would very much like to welcome our new friends and colleagues from the greater Boston area and the Investor Catalyst Hub, who are also here today. So welcome. To all of you in attendance here today, thank you so much for being here to celebrate this exciting occasion with us. It's with your partnership and innovative ideas that ARPA-H can thrive, and its mission to accelerate better health outcomes for all. Up next, we're going to hear a video message from Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and we're going to then invite Lyda Hill up to visit. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Texas 30th Congressional District, ARPA-H. I'm Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and while I wish I could be there with you today, I'm excited beyond words for today's announcement. Let me be one of the first to welcome ARPA-H to Dallas, Texas. I'm thankful to the Biden-Harris administration, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Director of Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, Dr. Renee Wegerson, for bringing the ARPA-H Customer Experience Hub to the great state of Texas. Chairwoman Granger, myself, and countless state and local leaders and stakeholders worked together tirelessly to get this done. There's a saying that everything is bigger in Texas, and that is certainly true here. We Texans have big personalities, we have big hospitals and research facilities. We have big businesses and commercial spaces. We have big community networks and partnerships. We also have an unrivaled talent that's necessary to lead us into the 21st century on health breakthroughs. But Texas also has big issues with community health and equitable access to healthcare. Texas is fourth in the country for the number of cases of Alzheimer's disease and is second in the number of Alzheimer's disease deaths. Diabetes in Texas has surpassed the national average every year since 1999. Just last year, Texas had the largest number of uninsured Americans compared to the rest of the country. When ARPA-H announced that it was creating a customer experience hub, I immediately knew it had to come here to Dallas because of our unique demographics and patient population. So let's break down what bringing ARPA-H to Texas 30 means for my constituents. In this district, 1 out of 5 people live at or below poverty. Over 75% of the district is considered a minority. It is precisely because of these facts that this hub and headquarters are needed here to solve our nation's health challenges. We have the representative patient populations that are too often unable to receive the specialized care and treatment they need. We in Texas have the most to gain from a federal investment like ARPA-H, and this investment has the potential to advance medical research and achieve major scientific breakthroughs. And now, Texas 30th and its partners around the state have the chance to help diversify clinical trials and tailor medical care for patients in varied genetic backgrounds. This is to say nothing of how the jobs created by this customer hub will chart a new course for the Texas economy. Of course, none of this would be possible were it not for the world-class hospitals and research facilities already housed in North Texas and across the state and region. Thank you for coming together as researchers, medical professionals, and health advocates to change and save lives in the place I call home. From Washington, D.C., I'm Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Pegasus. We are really excited to celebrate the launch of ARPA-H here in Texas. Throughout today's launch, you have the opportunity to learn more about ARPA-H, to caring for its mission of accelerating health outcomes for all people. And as she just said, in Texas, we got all sorts of folks you get to practice on. You get to check with. When we learned that ARPA-H would be selecting locations for its customer experience and investor catalyst hubs, we knew that Texas has what it takes. We are effectively supporting the agency's mission. We also found that the agency's mission aligns closely with what we are already doing at Pegasus Park. Here on our 26-acre campus, we bring together innovative companies and organizations across science, technology, social impact, healthcare, to make the world a better place. Pegasus Park serves as a place for national stakeholders to convene, to advance innovation through collaboration. Those two kind of run together, innovation through collaboration. We couldn't be more thrilled that ARPA-H's Customer Experience Hub will be part of the community. The hub will also get the benefit of being just down the hall or just an elevator's ride from organizations like UT Southwest Medical, Parkland Center for Clinical Innovation, Southern Methodist University, McKinson, Biolabs, Mass Challenge, and many others. Through my career, I have been driven to tackle problems that are bold, complex, and some might call impossible. As a matter of fact, I had a quote from Walt Disney on my desk for years that says, "It's fun to do the impossible." And this is really fun. I believe that the best innovation happens when teams collaborate together. And I can't wait to see the incredible impact of the programs that launch out of this game-changing agency. Thank you, Dr. Winter. Where she? I was just saying hello to her, Dr. Renee Winger, and her team, ARPA-H, to the Advanced Technology International team, and to many partners and collaborators that have made today happen. Welcome to the future. Thank you.
Okay, this is it. Hello, Texas. Well, it's so great to look around and see your smiling faces. The ARPA-H team was here earlier this summer as part of a competitive process, and I would say you was a little more stressed out when we were here before. So it really is a big day to celebrate. I'm excited to be here with the Dallas community, our distinguished guests, of course, members of the press I know that are here, and then the newest members of the ARPA-H family, Advanced Technology International and Lida Health Philanthropies. We're really excited to be here to mark this momentous occasion for the agency. Together, we're taking a step forward in the pursuit of better health outcomes for all Americans. And we're officially opening the Customer Experience Hub right here in Dallas and right here in Pegasus Park. When ARPA-H was established about a year ago, our vision was to catalyze the entire health ecosystem by bringing together individuals with innovators to really bridge that gap between innovation that often happens in a laboratory, but can be siloed from the hospitals, the patients, and the communities that really stand to benefit the most. And so we weren't going to stand from that. And we knew if we were going to launch an agency that would launch these new innovations, that we had to create a network that we could actually engage patients and then eventually transition those capabilities to and sustain funding as a resource longer term. And so that's where our Investor Catalyst Hub in Boston really comes into place. In launching this network, it's called ARPANET-H. And so ARPANET-H is really intended to also simplify the way that government works with non-traditional partners, with communities, and researchers alike. It can be very challenging to work with the federal government. It can be very slow to work with the federal government. A lot of us have some experience in industry and government. We know that we can do better, and we hope that ARPANET-H is going to help us be able to do that. If it's not clear yet, ARPA-H is very action-oriented. We have program managers here today somewhere where Andrea, she stepped out. But you'll hear from program managers who come to ARPA-H to launch programs and really create those innovations to bridge some of those gaps. The ARPANET will allow us to create regional hubs to do that through the Customer Experience Hub, through our Investor Catalyst Hub, and importantly, we'll create a hub site in the National Capital Region that also gets us close to our payers like CMS and to our regulators like FDA, because we can't wait till the end of the finish line, of course, to engage with them. And so I want to talk a little bit about Dallas and the team that came together to really launch this Customer Experience Hub. One of the key criteria that we were looking for when we were launching this hub was to find a team that really brought together not only the best in their community and their network, but also could really rally and bring all 50 states together. So while Texas is a rather large ecosystem, the learnings aren't only relevant for Texas. They're relevant to the entire country. And that was really a testament to all of the spokes that the Lida Hill and ATI teams have been able to recruit and will continue to recruit over the course of the ARPANET. We want that network to grow as we have new relevant programs launching. The diversity of the network ranges from urban areas to rural hospitals, but also a lot of diversity in the membership capability. So we have university centers present. We have small companies that are part of the spoke network. We also have payers and clinics, advocacy groups, of course, not-for-profits. Even within this own building, it feels vertically integrated almost across the entire innovation ecosystem, which is incredibly unusual. So we're very excited to be here and be part of this. Most importantly, the Customer Experience Hub is focused on the customer. Those are the patients. Those are all the Americans that we serve at ARPA-H. So think about all of the, almost like the linear way in which science is developed, right? You come with an innovation in the lab. Maybe you bring that to an animal study and then eventually to the clinic. And the reality is, if you think about launching a product, you don't do that in a linear way. You beta test, you pilot it out, you try to figure out, what does the customer think? Is this usable? None of us are riding here in Segways, right? There wasn't something that was able to really scale. And but how do you really integrate and with those customers and really build partners along the way? And that's what ARPANET-H will do. So we will launch those programs. We will pursue those scientific achievements, but all along the way, engaging customers, our patients as a partner. Today, we're going to make really big new strides and actually announce a new program. So we are in the business of creating moonshots for health. These are the big initiatives that we are here to catalyze, to buy down the risk and show the art of what is possible. And our champions, the program managers, now Andrea's back, they really are the champions. They come to ARPA-H not with this great resume. We're looking for doers, but they come with these ideas of, this is what I want to do and I'm passionate about solving. And I think Andrea's got a few programs in her, but she's going to be talking a little bit more about one today that is the Advancing Clinical Trial Readiness Initiative, or ACTR. And so ACTR aims to really address the opportunity of and the challenge. What if 90% of all eligible Americans were able to participate in a clinical trial within a half hour of their home? This is a very ambitious goal. There's not going to be one solution that gets us there, but we're ready to really lean into the ARPANET and try to bring together communities to help us move towards that goal, to serve our program managers and really to bridge that innovation. As you know, clinical trials play a vital role in evaluating innovations and breakthroughs. However, the challenges such as lack of interoperability, access to data, even access to electronic health records, the enrollment processes, and even having patients be aware that there is a clinical trial to participate really hampers progress. So you have this rapid speed of innovation in the lab, and that comes to a grinding halt when you need to hear about it in the clinic. We engaged with some of our folks today, and I heard somebody say 1 patient per month enrollment. And so can you imagine what that would do to an ARPA, right? So we are, even before we're at the end of a program, where we were starting new programs and capabilities and initiatives to be able to help us accelerate the way. And so ACTR is really going to activate the ARPANET to serve as a capability to bridge those gaps. I don't want to steal all of Andrea's thunder, but she's going to talk about some of the specific ways and actually speak on a panel about how we intend to do that. Really importantly, ARPA-H is going to leverage a lot of the great investment of places like HHS, the National Institutes of Health, we're not going to recreate any capabilities, but we're going to accelerate and partner with them. And so I'll close out our remarks really just saying thank you again for being here. I'm so excited that this journey brought us to Dallas. This is just the start. I'm already getting all these tips now that our new home is Dallas, figuring out barbecue places and other ways that we can grow our new friendships and our partnerships working together. And so now it's really my pleasure to hand it off the mic to our Director of Transition, Craig Gravitz, and he's going to share a little bit about how we're going to activate ARPANET and this new initiative. So thanks again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, boss. So back at our stakeholder and operations hub in DC, in the Renwick Gallery, there's this art installation that Renee likes to put on all of our slides. And it says, this present moment used to be the unimaginable future. That is fundamentally what a program manager is here to do, is to take something, this idea, this concept, that's like a technical bottleneck, something that people can't imagine, and manifest it, something that's 3 generations beyond what people can think is possible today. At its core, that's what ARPA-H is. And so I run the transition office. As you can imagine, taking a technology from the future and trying to transition it today is actually a big problem. There's not necessarily transition pathways. There aren't necessarily tools to do these sorts of things. And so the reason why my office exists, the transition office, is to have a strategy that's just as creative as these genius program managers like Andrea, here, whoever she is. There you are. And to come up with a strategy so that when she does unlock this brand new future, it actually gets to people. And so a couple months back, like April, Renee pulls me aside in our WeWork. She's like, Craig, I have this idea for you. And that's really what turned into this effort. So the present moment in April or whenever that was, we're now here, which is really cool. We can do big things at ARPA-H. Okay. So I manage an office that tries to build a transition strategy so that things can happen. This effort, this ARPANET-H, is the way to do that. I want to talk a little about the two hubs, but then also very specifically how these hubs are related to that transition strategy. Okay. So it is my view that there are three elements that allow something to actually make it into the wild. So there's the science, right? The technical feasibility of what you're doing. But then there's also the people. You need to build trust. You need to make sure that solutions are affordable. You need to make sure that people can access that. That's fundamentally what the customer experience hub is about. It's about human beings solving for them. Our other hub, Boston, is all about markets. Just because the science exists and just because people want it doesn't mean that there's actually a workable business model, or maybe it can't get through regulatory. And so that other hub is designed to get at that other element of it. So you see what I'm talking about, the transition strategy that kind of matches the boldness of the technical ideas. So that's what we do here in my office. Okay. ACTOR, the Advancing Clinical Trial Readiness project that Renee just mentioned. One of the ways that we want to transition things, and it's really important inside this customer experience network, is to engage with human beings in a way that's meaningful. So I've worked in the government for a bit, and let me tell you how things normally happen. So normally there is a solicitation that you write, and this thing, it's long, people don't really know what it is, and you post it on sam.gov, okay? Does a community health center go on sam.gov? Probably not. We were talking about a really great effort that NIH did with barbershops to test for hypertension earlier this morning. Does someone who own a barbershop, does he go on sam.gov and look for things? Probably not. And so if we're serious at ARPA-H of actually engaging people, we need to find a much more meaningful way to engage with people. And fundamentally, that's what we're going to do here in Dallas through the Customer Experience Network. So for ACTOR, the Advancing Clinical Trial Readiness Initiative, we are releasing a what we're calling a network activation call. So this is how we get to both the scientists who might be able to participate, but maybe also the barbershops, honestly. This is a way to bring in the entire cross-section, the entire spectrum of people who really need to buy in, and we really need to understand their perspectives. So it fundamentally does three things. So one, it's going to help us better understand the problem that we're trying to solve. If you can all Google Einstein on problem solving. It's actually a very useful way to think about things. Don't just imagine a solution and try to deliver it. He basically says if you spend like 99% of your time defining the problem and 1% of your time getting to the solution, you'll get there. So that's the first thing. It's going to help us better understand the problem. Two, it's going to help us understand the capabilities that exist out to solve that problem. And they might not just be technical capabilities. They could be things like engaging more meaningfully with community organizations like a barbershop. And then finally, what constraints might hold back stakeholders from contributing? So money, fear of working with the government, just bandwidth issues. We want to understand what the actual real world problems are for people engaging in this effort, but really all of the other efforts they're going to be launching. So that's what we're doing. We're releasing this network activation, and we're going to get to all of those different people. Okay. So with that, imagine us doing that not just for ACTOR, but every other effort that's going to go through the customer experience and the Investor Catalyst Hub. We're going to engage the country, those 1,000 spokes that Renee talked about. Our ambition is to do that at scale, repeatedly connect the country, not just for this effort, but all of our other efforts. And with that, I would like to introduce the lead of ARPANET-H, Amy Lind.
Hello, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here, and I would actually like to invite up my fellow panelists as well. So please join me on the stage, and as you're coming up, I will introduce you for the to make the most of your walk up. This is gonna be your walk up song. I'm really delighted to be here for the announcement or the launch today of the Customer Experience Hub, but especially to talk about what we're doing first with it. And we're putting it to work. And just as our director, Dr. Wegerson, and our patio director, Craig Gravitz, just mentioned, the first initiative is the Advancing Clinical Trial Readiness initiative. And we're really thrilled that it embodies so much of the values of what we want to do in the Customer Experience Hub. It's looking to make clinical trials more representative of all Americans. It's looking to be inclusive, and it's starting with a dialogue. It's saying that we are here to listen, to learn, and to put those learnings to work for the American people with health innovations. And so here on the panel with me to help explain what that'll look like exactly, to my left, we have Mike Stebbins. He is the program executive for the Customer Experience Hub. He's also vice president of Medical and Threat Countermeasures Division at ATI, and he oversees a portfolio of biotech and medical programs of over $40 billion. Next to him is the famous Andrea Bild that you've been hearing so much about already. She is our program manager at ARPA-H. She joins us as previously she was professor of medical oncology and therapeutics at the City of Hope Medical Center and director of Cancer Systems Biology Center, focused on using mathematical models to understand tumor heterogeneity. She was also the founder of Unravel Genomics, an innovative startup that creates personalized treatments for cancer patients. And to her left is Dr. Eric Peterson. Dr. Eric Peterson is Vice Provost and Senior Associate Dean for the Clinical Research and the Professor of Medicine at University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. He's been a principal investigator on large clinical implementation projects, and a member of executive steering committees for several large cardiovascular clinical trials, and brings that perspective with us today. He also happens to have authored over 1,000 peer-reviewed publications, so has some insight into doing the research and also documenting it well. So that's who you're about to hear from. But first, I would like to hear a little bit from you all. So with a show of hands, I'm going to pose a question and think about which way you would vote. If you were designing a clinical trial, which challenge would you rather tackle? Making it easier for people to enroll or making it easier to collect the research data? So for those who would like to tackle making it easier for people to enroll, please raise your hands. Okay, that's a good number. All right. For those who would prefer to focus on making it easier to collect the research data, please raise your hands. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Second question. Now, if you were participating in a clinical trial, would you rather join one that's closer to your home or one recommended by someone you know? For those who would go to the one closest to their home, raise your hands. Okay. All right. And for those who would prefer to go farther, but to a clinical trial that's recommended by someone they know, please raise your hands. Oh, interesting. Far more here on that second question. And now for the third and last. Who doesn't really know what a clinical trial is? All right, you don't have to raise your hands. But we are thrilled to have you all here with all of your preferences. And with that, I would love to turn it over to Andrea first. We've been hearing some of the high-level goals of what the Advancing Clinical Trial Readiness Initiative is aiming to achieve. But if you could tell us more about the key goals and why they matter.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. First, I'd like to say how happy I am to be here in Dallas, Texas, the home of my favorite football team and my favorite football player, Emmitt Smith. I know I'm dating myself here, but he's also from University of Florida, so my alma mater. But yeah, thank you for having us. I'm so excited that we were able to announce ACTR today. ARPA-H aims to develop tools and technologies and capabilities to facilitate development of decentralized clinical trials and able to better serve the American people and the patients that we all treat. So for this initiative, I know that Renee talked a lot about it, but we're seeking to kind of treat people closer to the point of care so that patients don't have to travel undue distances to participate in clinical trials and gain access to new therapies. We also benefit from these types of trials because clinical trials can then enroll a broad diversity of patients, as well as have higher and more rapid accrual to trials. Now, there are a few key points in which we'd like your feedback on. I'm just going to list a couple of those, but you can find more information online. First, we'd like to hear your ideas on how to better enroll patients or pre-identify patients for clinical trials so that we can match the right patient to the right clinical trial in a way that isn't too burdensome on the clinical care teams. We also like to hear ways about how to facilitate the consent process so that it's easier for the clinical teams and the patients. And we'd like to hear your ideas on decentralized clinical trial strategies that might be effective at reaching a broad spectrum of patients. Importantly, you hear a lot about data. We'd like to better understand how you might best think about data collection, use, and sharing so that across the diverse sites that are participating in decentralized clinical trials, we can share this data with researchers and clinical teams. And then lastly, we're really interested in learning more about how to test and evaluate new technologies and strategies that will be implemented into the clinical trial spectrum, and also how to then roll these clinical trials out across the community to serve both clinicians and patients more broadly. So there's a lot of information, I understand, but we're very excited to hear from you all today, get your insight. And I thank everyone that has today participated in our discussions and given really great ideas on some of these topics. And we will continue to listen to you and take your considerations into our planning process. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And you teased up that somehow feedback can be provided online. I'd like to turn to Mike now as part of the Customer Experience Hub. Can you tell us more about how exactly can we get all of that feedback on the excellent initiative that Andrea was just describing? What format will the network activation call take?
Thank you, Amy. And I just want to echo everybody's sentiment. It's wonderful to be here today. Before I get into the how to get to the call, just want to respond to Andrea. I appreciate your comment about the Cowboys. I grew up a Cowboys fan. I will not date myself on who my favorite players were, but I also picked up your alma mater. I happen to have gone to University of Tennessee, so I would have picked a different spot on the stage. We can work together, I'm sure. We've had a hard time with Florida as of late.
Yeah.
No, this is great. This activation call is live now. You can visit it on our customerexperiencehub.org website. It's there. It should be very easy to navigate to. And Craig spoke real briefly about some of the specifics about what we're trying to achieve in this call. And it really is about a better understanding of the problem, not only for the PM, but from you all and the rest of the network. It's critical to understand different perspectives. These programs get put together through several lenses, but those that are out there and have real life experiences of their own can bring those to bear. And that's really what we're looking to get in these activation calls. And just like today, where we sat down through an immersive experience and a chat, there will be greater opportunities to have those dialogues. They won't just be, here's a form, please fill it out and let us know what you think. But we really ask that you engage with us. We will with you to better understand the problem, to shape it so that as we go through the life cycle, it really can become a transformative effort. And again, part of having an expansive network is understanding the capabilities that are resident within the network, as well as the capabilities that are needed that aren't out there yet or aren't with entities that we're aware of. So we'll be using you all to help further the network. So it's networking. I don't know if that's happenable or not, but and then finally, as Craig mentioned, I think there are tremendous barriers for all of the problems that are going to look to be solved. We were at, and not only barriers for the entities that might get involved in the actual research, but for the patients and that voice that we need to hear. One thing I heard this morning in one of the immersive experiences that really hit home was a clinician speaking to their patient looking to get them enrolled in a trial. And they said, well, you know, if you just wanted a little bit more information, just hop onto the internet. And they said, well, I don't have internet at the house. It's like, well, you can get it through your phone. And the comment was, well, my phone's a dumb phone. I don't have it. And so all of us in this room have the ability to go to a clinical trial or have it come to us or have the means to do that. But many of the patients that we'll be looking for don't. And so understanding that aspect as well, I think is really important. So the site's live now. Please go out and visit us and we'll be getting in touch shortly.
Thank you so much, Mike. Please go to the site, tell your friends, and do it before December 1st. Eric, turning to you. We've mentioned so much about the value of this network. And as we think about academic institutions like yours, how do you see an interest and format for engaging in the Advancing Clinical Trial Readiness initiative?
Yeah, no, it's an honor to be here today. I see myself in part as a professor at a major world-class academic university where discoveries are made every day. I'm also a physician who practices both at that institution and at Parkland, and I see patients who need new therapies today. And then I see myself, unfortunately, as the problem. You mentioned I've been practicing as a researcher for 30 years, working in these fields, and we still do studies very much like I did as I first began in the field, putting posters on walls to try to get interest in our studies, enrolling that one patient per site per month. We make studies too slow, too complex, too costly, and ultimately non-representative of the populations we actually need this data for. You know, figures that haven't changed since I was a fellow are the 17 years from discovery to full clinical practice. What has changed is the cost, now over $1 billion to get a product onto and past the FDA. But today I also am filled with the promise, and the promise for the future, or maybe even the promise for tomorrow. And that comes from lots of things. We have much more incredible data. We have technologies that are coming out every day that are empowering us to do incredible things. We lived through COVID, for which we saw on a dime the health system change in America, and the results of our patients seeing that amazing healthcare being delivered and many, many lives saved. This morning, I got to hear great ideas, bright spots from people that are trying new things. And at our own institution, we are coming up with new innovations on how we might speed up that process. But how to scale that to a nation is something that ARPA-H brings. So I believe in part that network and that platform and that catalyst will be incredible to move this during my lifetime as a researcher and hopefully my lifetime as a patient forward.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate the outline of the challenges, but also the galvanizing call of the promise. I'm going to put the audience on notice. We'll be taking some questions in a few minutes, so please think of any questions or comments you might have to share with our panelists. But in the meantime, I wanted to pick up on that promise that you just mentioned, Eric, and you noted that a lot of the timelines haven't shrunk, but the price tag has certainly gone up. Could you speak from your own experience of some of the challenges you've seen that have led to that situation, and what are some of the key aspects that we're going to need to tackle as we think about ACTOR?
Yeah, no, I think ARPA-H has sort of nailed several of those you heard during the early parts of this, an emphasis on how do we do the enrollment process? Can we identify patients earlier on based on their electronic medical record and use of AI and other technologies to find these patients? Can we streamline the process of actually getting the data into the system? Again, being able to be pulled from what we've already collected as a part of our routine clinical care. Can we engage the patient or participant in this case and provide to them not only, as we heard this morning, issues of trust, but also provide it in a way that would be meaningful and understandable, ways in which that informed consent process is shrunken from a 30-page form to something they might view quickly online and ask a few questions about whether and what they should do to get actually enrolled in those studies. So those are many of the early hurdles. The other part that we heard very clearly was patients themselves don't like to travel long distances to have these opportunities. And Texas is a very broad state. So how do we work on creating ways in which many of those visits could be done virtual or at local facilities. How do we work with the local people in the community to figure out how to do that trial and enroll that patient in a way that would provide access as you goal within 15 minutes for all patients?
Great, thank you. And Andrea, I think maybe to continue that list, I think Eric was already speaking to some of those challenges to overcome. And you were noting in the beginning the important role of data and how can we think about the interoperability and those other analytical components to make it easier to enroll in every other step through the process. Could you speak to that, especially from your own experience?
Right. So I'm not a clinician, I'm a scientist, but as a scientist, I launched a few clinical trials. And the hurdle was always finding the right patients for those trials. Enrolling at faster than one patient per month was always a challenge. In seeing a broad diversity of patients. When I started my career, I was at Utah, so that was in particular very hard to do. And you can imagine that one goal of ARPA-H is to make that process easier. And you can think about how you might do that, linking EHRs to clinical trial systems to automatically refine and identify patients that could be enrolled. This would help the clinical teams find the right patients for your trials. Clinicians are really busy in the clinic. And so lowering that threshold by use of different technologies that are now available would be really impactful and really help benefit the clinical trial fabric by recruiting faster, getting new technologies and drugs to patients faster. I think it would just touch on all points of clinical care in a positive way. So that's kind of how I think about that particular area.
Excellent. Thank you. And as you could tell from some of my questions at the beginning, Mike, not everybody that will want to engage is going to be a clinical trial expert or will have led a clinical trial or even participated in one. As you think about the network activation call and the activation overall to reach out to new kinds of organizations, what can the Customer Experience Hub do to really reach new types of groups and engage them in this effort?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think I'll go back to the phrase I used earlier about networking. It's really critical that there be an altruistic component to what's being undertaken by ARPA-H. Certainly there will be some government funding calls that come to bear, but these are real life problems that in one way or another touch all of us. And so utilizing your connections to help make connections to specific populations or specific individuals and bringing those back to bear. We have mechanisms to reach out, but this is a vast community. It's not just a series of researchers or hospitals or advanced manufacturers and developers. And those are fairly easy to find and then start to make connections. But it's really reaching deep into the community so that you understand the voice of the community. And we'll be relying on all of you. We'll set up community meetings. We'll have events like this. They'll be formal, they'll be informal, they'll be hybrid, in person, etc. So visit the website. We'll broadly announce where we're going to be, and we'll look for suggestions from you to help us understand where we should be that we haven't already been. So I think hopefully that covers a bit of it.
Wonderful. And in that spirit, then, I do want to open it up to questions from the audience as well. So please do go to the Customer Experience Hub website, as Mike was just mentioning, and add in your ideas on those questions about the initiative and capabilities that exist, and also what might prevent stakeholders from operating. But also, if you have suggestions for how we can better engage, we want to make sure we are using different kinds of forums and new communication channels to really make this a dialogue. But with that, are there any questions for our panelists here around the Advancing Clinical Trial Readiness or the network activation call?
Thank you so much. So when it comes to the network activation call, really this is such an important topic out there that we're trying to tackle. There's so much interest from academia, industry, and patients and clinicians. You're going to collect so much data on this challenge. Are there any plans to share that act with the community?
Okay. I think absolutely. So one of the aspects of Customer Experience Hub is not only to progress science and address and create better health outcomes, but it's to take the lessons learned, good and bad, and share them broadly within the community so that they're leave behind artifacts, so to speak. So, what we may discover in Actor can be disseminated broadly across the network. So if it's something that could be taken up in another community hospital or another large hospital, that they have the opportunity to not only get the review of that, but then reach back into the players that help create that to understand whether they can then implement it themselves. Or perhaps they've tried and they can offer a suggestion that could also create leave behind artifacts as well.
You want to add to that?
I can just speak broadly. What we learned from the Actor initiative as a whole, we hope to share that with the community, and any technologies development or capabilities developed, we will obviously disseminate to the clinical and research communities to improve this type of clinical trial focus.
Excellent. And I think that really speaks to one of the fundamental goals of what we're trying to accomplish as well, right? We're looking to find new ways of conducting clinical trials to reach these objectives, and we want them to be used by others. We want them to be sustainable. And so I know our earlier session had really emphasized how important that dissemination is going to be to make sure that any of these efforts are scalable and practical so that they can have the maximum benefit. Thank you for that question. I think I saw a hand over there in the back here. I don't know if there's a mic available. There it is.
That's right. Just personally, my little boy was on a trial that I mentioned last summer, and we were searching when First Line didn't work. We searched all over the place for trials, and we were willing to go anywhere. And we talked to moms to go on Facebook. And really, for this type of a trial, it's so complicated to the moms and the dads that are trying to find the right trial for their child, who would go to the ends of the earth to figure it out. And it's Facebook, which is really kind of sad. And for what we did is we went to our treating doctor and asked for his advice to tell us, what do you think would help? Where do you think we should go? Because we didn't know. So that's just my firsthand experience. And that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you were able to overcome so many hardships there. Let me turn it to two of our speakers here who've overseen many of the clinical trials that have seen challenges faced by those who wish to participate, maybe didn't even know about them, and had to find new ways of getting that information. Maybe Eric, I'll start with you, and then if Andrea wants to comment.
Sure. There's a couple points, and thank you for sharing. There's a couple points that your comments bring up. The first of which is that connection part that, we often talk so much about, participants or patients not being willing to participate in trials. Here you are, desperate to try to participate in a study and challenged to try to find it. So the first is just getting to that offer state. And it is a communication issue. And it exists on a lot of different levels. Your doctor knowing about it, your ability to hear about it, your ability to get to a center for which that was provided. And I think there's a lot of activity that this initiative will hopefully work on all of those to make that better. The other is you are likely a person of both intelligence and means to be able to seek out that type of care. There are many individuals who it just never offered, and they never know those opportunities, or they wouldn't know where to begin to try to do the connections that got you to hopefully ultimately the study that you wanted to. So we have to think about the diversity question of how do we allow everybody an opportunity in this room to get similar opportunities. Typically, when we've looked at it, actually, the willingness to participate in trials doesn't differ that much across people. It's pretty similar, actually, but the ability to be offered the study differs remarkably. And so that's why the trials look a lot like us and not diverse populations.
Thank you for sharing your story. It always amazes me when I hear these types of challenges. We can currently take a tumor, look at hundreds of thousands of cells in that tumor and understand their behaviors, their genetic makeup, but we still can't map patients to the right clinical trials in a way that's easy for families and patients. And I think this initiative in ARPA-H in general really seeks to solve these previously untenable but really impactful problems for us for this initiative. It is a core goal to be able to help fix that problem by using the same computational technologies that are already present in the research community and apply it to this, common core issue. And so thank you for sharing that story. And again, this is something that's definitely a core focus of this initiative.
I think one other piece that experience raises is how important it is to engage physicians in different ways, since that was a key source of information for you all, and thinking about education for the patients, but also their physicians and that connection point to enable broader eligibility. I know that came through in our previous discussion as well. As you think about the network building, Mike, how do you think about including organizations that reflect the different types of stakeholders in the health ecosystem, the patients, the physicians, also the payers, other incentives that are required to be shifted to move any new initiative forward?
Yeah, I think the challenge is you have to take into account all of them. And in certain circumstances, you may be favoring one versus the other to get the right information. But just as we talk about, a clinician having to put themselves in the seat or the mindset of the patient, everybody in those groups, the payers, the clinicians, the community organizations, the patients themselves, the researchers that are going to help work on certain projects have to keep in mind the end objective and not have their blinders on and just do the work that they're used to doing. So customer experience, end user experience is critical in not only thinking about the problem, but in checkpoints throughout the development of the solution as well.
Thank you. Let's do another question right here in the second row.
Dimple Sirica with Communities Foundation of Texas. First, just thank you for sharing what you're doing and bringing this opportunity to Dallas. One question that I had, which Amy, you just hit upon, is how are you engaging folks who don't normally engage as you think of this network activation call? Are you having different strategies other than just the get online? Do you have specific efforts within the community that you are trying to push out? And then are there any specific goals in terms of thinking of the diversity of who is responding and how are you tracking those?
Excellent. Maybe Mike, if you could take a first stab at that question. I think of non-traditional ways of engaging with different types of community members, especially those who haven't worked with the government before and may not find their way easily to the customerexperiencehub.org website.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spoke to that earlier. Folks that don't even have a internet access or cell phone. I think it's critical to leverage the connections that we're making here today, to be honest with you. I don't have the answers for all of those. And yes, we're very adept at traditional means of reaching out to people, but that is through means that we all have access to very clearly here in this room. But it's leveraging folks like you and your organization to say, hey, this voice is not represented. Speaking with our clinicians and with Andrea and the other program managers to understand the groups that they already are aware of, and then we can go reach deeper into the community to understand those. We've got deep connections through this room and that we've already made. And so we're going to have to leverage those in a different way than we have previously.
And I liked what you had mentioned earlier as well, this network of networks. It sounds a little meta, but I think how can we get to first, second, third order contacts and also learn about what has worked in the past? What has worked in reaching those for the first time to participate in a clinical trial, and how can they be either spokespersons or giving us information on how to build trust in new ways and extend our reach? I will also say, I think as this network activation call goes forward, we would love to hear ideas for what are those examples that have happened in the past, what has worked. And then as Andrea mentioned in an earlier discussion, tell us what has failed. Tell us what hasn't worked. Do you want to expand on that, Andrea?
I think Craig has a comment over here.
Hey, Craig Ravitz, ARPA-H. How are you? Hey, Mike, this is a really great teaching moment. So we need people to help us reach into communities. So not only if someone wants to respond to the activation call, as coined by Dan Bram, what if someone has a network that could be helpful and they would like to become a spoke? How would someone go do that?
Thank you. They could reach out to me personally or the entire team. You can email us at ARPA at cxhub@ati.org, or we have some info cards around. Certainly you could reach back into the ARPA-H office and they can connect you with us. But reach out to us. We'll get on the phone with you. We'll have a conversation. We'll tell you about the effort, how fairly simple it is to sign up, and we'll walk you through that process. And then we'd love to learn more about your network. So the process is designed to be extremely easy to join, and it's the best way to leverage the network. So thanks, Craig.
So thank you for the teaching moment. And then Andrew, do you want to speak more? Or Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, just getting back to your question of how do we sort of test or evaluate, we heard of networks. We're now going to do research on research. And conceptually, the idea here is we have many ideas and we might hear them from the community, doctors, whatever, of what might work. This seemed to be great. We like this idea. The nice thing about this platform is it gives us the ability to test out and evaluate whether those things work. At our own center, we thought we'll reach out to patients before their visits and offer them up the opportunities to be in studies. But yet we found there are a variety of different ways we could do that. And we started to test out, in a sort of rigorous fashion, which ones were resonating, which ones did people actually respond to, which ones were people more likely to engage and enroll in. And we're learning now out of that how to best reach people with an idea and have them at least consider this as a possibility of being involved with this study. Upfront, we had ideas what was going to work. We found out through the studies that it was slightly different than we imagined.
Just keep the comments coming. That's why we're here.
Earlier, a lot of you raised your hands when you said you would have preferred to go to a clinical trial that was recommended by someone you knew. I wonder if my panelists could speak to how do we gin up that word of mouth? How do we help start that momentum so that more people are hearing about clinical trials and from hopefully trusted sources that they are then more encouraged to participate in?
Okay, I'll start. It's really nice that there's many advocacy groups. I work in the field of breast cancer, so there's a lot in that space. And I think reaching out to those groups would really facilitate getting the word out on some of these initiatives. Also, patients themselves, as we heard earlier, network. And I can't say how many times, we've networked with the community for rare diseases, for cancer, to get patients to the right clinical trials through kind of innovative solutions through communication like Facebook or other web pages. So for us, we hope to continue to network. If you have great ideas for reaching out in different ways, please send those to us. But that's definitely a highlight of the Actor Network.
Excellent. A question over here in the corner.
My name is Peter Cohen. I'm at Texas Women's University. Way back in the olden days, I wrote my dissertation on ACT UP, which focused a lot on clinical trials during the AIDS epidemic. And I'm wondering, I haven't thought about this in about 30 years, but there was a lot of work done there, and it seems like it didn't fix everything. And I'm wondering if you're going to reach out to historians or to people who were involved in that movement.
Thank you. Right before we answer it, I think we only have time for another question. If there's one more, we'll just bundle them. Oh, right here. just wait 1 second because I think those online can't hear unless you have a mic. Right over here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been so exciting hearing about the Advancing Clinical Trials Readiness project. I think we've heard a lot about big challenges we have here, seen the call for opportunities for the big ideas. I think most of us in the room have seen a big number tied to the agency, $2.5 billion. Can you talk a little bit about capital deployment, how you've seen that with other programs and how what it might look like for this program? Thank you.
I think we're going to start with the history one. And then I'm putting my leadership on notice about the second one. So the ACT UP history and learning in general about past clinical trial experiences and what we can learn from the past decade's work and not repeat those pieces. Andrea?
The goals of ARPA-H are to move at speed, to facilitate areas of importance and that are impactful for the patients. And so absolutely, we use what's known historically to work or not work and leverage what's already been done just to build further capabilities and refinements to tools. So I think your point is a really good one, to keep touch with the folks that have done a lot of work in this space. And that's what we are doing and will continue to do, as well as to continue discussions like this. So happy if you have further ideas on that particular initiative, please do send them to me.
And then to the question of the funding opportunities that may be coming down the pike, I think there might be a mic running to you now for the $2.5 billion question.
You are good on your feet, I would say. Let me stand up. So thank you for the question around our budget. So for those of you that don't know, when ARPA-H launched a little over a year ago, our initial appropriation was $1 billion. Since that time, we are lucky enough, Congress and the president pushed us forward for another $1.5 billion. So we have a total of $2.5 billion to launch. And that really helped take us from 0 to 1. Last year, we spent almost $1 billion, most of that, about 90% of that on R&D funding. And so if you look to the announcements that have come out from ARPA-H, you'll see, we're not afraid to take big bets in this space across a broad variety of diseases and technologies. But what's really important, those big shots on goal, you have to take many of those big shots on goal. Not every one of those is going to be a success. And so part of what I would love to do as a director of ARPA-H is continue to grow that budget, take more shots on goal, take bets on program managers who have this incredible vision and clarity of how they want to make this a reality and really empower them to do so. So we're really lucky to have that start of great resources, but looking forward to continuing to grow that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to give each panelist a chance to give us their 1 minute or less takeaway. If you were to sum up what the most important message you would like to leave with this group is in 140 characters or less, what would it be? We'll go down the line. Eric, Andrea, Mike.
Well, I would like to summarize it as, I hope this is not business as usual. And everything you've heard today says it is not. So dream big and let's see what comes out of this. Excited.
It's just been so exciting to talk to everyone. And what I've learned most is everyone has brilliant, bold ideas. I just want to hear more of them. Also, you've had ideas on how things fail. I want to hear more of that. But I'm even more excited walking away from today. So I thank everyone for their input and participation.
I think I'd sum it up with the phrase paradigm shift. We have to think differently. You have to think about the outcome, but not in the way that you traditionally think about solving a problem, and look at through multiple lenses. That's my takeaway.
All right. So you heard excitement, you heard dream big, you heard tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly, and do it before December 1st. Thank you so much. We are thrilled to launch the Customer Experience Hub with you all today. Thank you for being partners in this effort. Thank you for using your networks to share about the first network activation call for the Advancing Clinical Trials Readiness Initiative. And we look forward to hearing from you and continuing this dialogue. And with that, please give me a round of applause for all of the panelists. And now I'll turn it back to Renee to close us out.
Okay. I get the privilege to close this out here. And, I had good memories listening to the conversation today, not only just the excitement that we bring, but I forgot how much Texas talks about football when we were here. And I tried to think back to my childhood. So I was born in Chicago, so I think that genetically makes me a Chicago Bears fan. My favorite player, Will the Refrigerator Perry, once said, I actually have no idea because I'm not a football fan, but I thought his name was funny when I was a kid. So that's all the football you'll ever get out of me. But really, before we close, just my thanks again to Pegasus Park, to Lida Hill, to the philanthropy organization, to ATI. We are just so excited to be here in Dallas. We consider this part of the ARPA-H home now, and so excited to be part of this community. I want to just kind of reflect for my team. This is now the rest of this is for the benefit of my team. Building a startup is really hard. I've had the pleasure to do that in the private sector, to be part of a team that did that. But I will say building a startup in the federal government is not for the faint of heart. But if you have the right team who's willing to try, it actually not only makes it easier, it makes it just a delight and a pleasure. And I'm just so lucky to have that team. But for those of you who haven't met my team yet, I do hope after we close this out today, not only do you get a chance to meet them, but you'll meet each other. So find somebody new that you don't recognize and learn a little bit about them. What you'll learn if you meet somebody from my team is that they're a little quirky. They want me to say things like, we're in the business of launching unicorns at ARPA-H, but today we start with a Pegasus. They're like beaming right now. They love this. Their creativity is really what makes ARPA-H the amazing place that we all call home. And that really will help launch these networks and do things in a way that's different. They're willing to look outside the box. Craig Gravitz, where is he? We did it, Craig. We launched it. We also successfully diverted all attention to Andrea. So done. But your leadership and your willingness to just take big bets on Americans is what makes this country great, to have public servants like you. And you know how much I mean that, so thank you. All right, Joe Schonkweiler, our recovering surgeon turned chief operating officer. I don't know who does that switch, but you did. So you bring this mindset of what we need in the medical community, but also you are somebody who I can make a suggestion of what I think we need to do to get this agency started. I can see the look in your face is that it's just impossible, but you're like, we got this, we're going to do it. And so I just really appreciate your leadership, your partnership, your humor through all of this. To the team, I really do have a dream team. So Jen, Sam, Isabella, Hannah, who else here? Andrea is here, Hillary. I know I'm forgetting people, and I apologize if I'm running through this really, really quickly. Our comms team is here. And so really this wouldn't be possible without all of you. You make it look so easy. And really just, it's a delight to be here with you. You're the utmost professionals, and you are really, truly ARPA humans. Nina, thank you. We have Presidential Innovation Fellow here too. So today, a really big milestone. I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of an engaging activity with me. One of our spokes, the Jefferson Design Lab from Philadelphia, does this really cool thing where they make, they do many, many things, but one of them is to work as a teaching exercise. They 3D print a lot of things that can be used to train surgeons, to train students. We brought them a crazy idea that said, not only do we want to kind of metaphorically launch and plug in the ARPANET, we actually literally want to do that. And so we're really excited that we're going to be able to do that today. We're excited to have our HHS team members here to witness it. So Casey joins us from Secretary's office. Secretary Sarah was so excited. He came last week here to see the offices. So thank you for all your support along the way. So if you'll indulge, don't do it for me, do it for my quirky team. I'm going to do a countdown from 5. I'm going to get on the stage, and I really want all of you to join in when we do this.